Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, is it World War III yet? So much going on, and one of the biggest stories under normal circumstances, whatever that means. You would really think it'd be this whole escalation with Russia. It's escalated every day this week. There's been another step up the escalator here. And we're kind of getting really close to it. Before I bring on my first guest, though, a couple of reminders. The James Show is your home for Project 2025 implementation. So if you need to find your FEMA gowns, that's the Handmaid's Tale, where you look like the Emperor's guards in Return of the Jedi, except you're just wearing a big bonnet. I'm still putting together blessedbethefruit.org. I just sat around giggling to myself, making some graphics for the page. I got an AI rendering of Jesus riding a dinosaur. It's going to be hilarious. So look forward to the big reveal, hopefully by the end of the week. All right, so now with all that, my first guest. By the way, if you do blessedbethefruit.org, it should just redirect to my page on WBAP.com. If it doesn't, let me know. I think there might be some issue with Safari browsers, but it's working on other ones for now. All right, all that taken care of. First guest, Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur, internationally recognized expert in chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear consultant at Rigaku Analytical Devices. Welcome back to the James Show. And just how close are we to World War III, Doctor?
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me back. Just to preface all my comments by saying this is not what de-escalation looks like. We are every day. There's a punch, counter-punch sort of movement. We're not too far away, potentially. Somebody has got to find the off-ramp. Here's what I find challenging about this. The United States could have authorized the use of surface-to-surface missiles to strike deep inside of Russia and not told the world about it, but we did. That was a strategic mistake, I think. And Ukraine took the opportunity, and I understand November 18th, all night to the 19th, they made a few strikes on ammunition plants, mainly not to gain new territory, but to express their displeasure of North Korean troops now on the battlefield. Then recently, we authorized the use of personnel mines in the Ukraine area of operations, and these are smart mines, right? They're not your World War II version. In other words, they can be set at a date and time or a number of other settings and just go inert on you. The challenge with this, in my mind, is that an inert landmine can be rewired in any form of an improvised explosive device. So the Ukrainians can deploy this where they wish, and this can come and this can in turn be their biggest problem tomorrow.
Just question, Dr. Brodeur. I don't know this in depth, but aren't landmines a war crime?
I don't think they're a war crime. I think we have treaties, and we're not a. And I can't speak with any authority on where the United States is as a signatory to that treaty. We are as a military are trying to wean ourselves away from that and find other weapons of war to replace that capability. The other thing that just popped up on my radar actually 2 hours ago is the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, is an arm of the United Nations to enforce and implement the Chemical Weapons Convention. On November 18th, they published a report. They actually went into Ukraine, took samples, sent it to labs to confirm that it is likely Russians violated the Chemical Weapons Convention by employing riot control agents, which are an anomaly in the CWC. They are prohibited in combat, but they are authorized for domestic law enforcement use because law enforcement finds that they need a non-lethal weapon in order to disperse crowds.
Okay.
So all of this is rolling up to pointing to war, and if it happens, you're not going to see a whole lot of U.S. troops deploying because they're already there. And they've been there for about 2 years, conducting military-to-military training with other NATO members.
Yeah, so I went back to the USA Today article where I had read that thing about the anti-personal landmines, and you were exactly right. There's a treaty signed by more than 160 countries banning these, but the U.S. nor Russia are signatories. So, wow, that seems to be a weird escalation. Talk about the staging ground. That was sort of the news that we had going into the top of the hour here on the James Show. What does that mean, this whole staging ground situation that Germany has admitted to?
Yeah, I think they offered it. I'm not sure that they're doing it. Listen, Germany had a cash cow called the United States from World War II all the way up till about 2010. The U.S. had a large Department of Defense footprint that we paid handsomely for. So there's a huge funding stream that German people realized on top of the secondary monetary gains. Imagine 50,000 service members and their families living off the installation and infusing their money into the economy. They complained so loudly and for so long, the United States minimize that footprint. They still have those infrastructure and those facilities available. Sounds to me like they're just trying to find another leaseholder. I will tell you, if I were king for a day, I would not choose Germany as a staging area. Poland would be a much more attractive choice for me.
Well, we would be breaking with tradition because, in over the last century or so, all the good world wars start in Germany. So I think that might be part of the reason that they're just driven to it. The world powers are driven to Germany to start world wars. Tell me about what you do at Rigaku. What do you do all day to know this stuff?
It's in my wheelhouse. This is what I've done for about 34 years, and retired as the assistant commandant to the Army's Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear School. Did a couple of deployments to Iraq as a civilian, conducting tactical surveys for CBRN, and that's where I was initially introduced to Rigaku Analytical Devices. I needed laboratory presumptive identification for chemicals of all types, toxic chemical and toxic industrial chemicals and chemical warfare agents. And I needed something that I could carry in my backpack, and I needed something that would render a report that was greater than 90% confidence in a short amount of time. In this example, it's actually less than a minute. So that would inform my tactical survey and my decisions. So that's what I do. I'm the safety and security consultant for him.
All right, there he is, Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur. Appreciate your time again on the James Show and WBAP. Coming up, I'm going to ask you, how many American missiles can hit targets in Russia before it's technically a war? I mean, are we already at war and we just don't know it? We just don't want to admit it? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. More updates coming on the beginnings of World War III on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show while we still have it, before, all our metropolitan areas get nuked by Russia here in another escalation. I don't know if you've been keeping up, but it just keeps happening over and over. We had the United States, it's the Biden administration, but we know whoever types the words into his teleprompter, that's the guy running the country. He decided that we are going to let Ukraine use American missiles and shoot them into targets in Russian territory. Now, you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis? It was an international disaster. And it was like a shining moment of diplomacy because the Russians had put some missiles in Cuba. Well, how much bigger of an issue would it have been? I mean, how many more movies would have been made about it? Another chapter in the book. If those missiles had actually fired and hit targets within the borders of the United States. And I don't mean like little dinky old Key West. I mean hundreds of miles inland. We would consider that an act of war. If Russia had floated missiles into anywhere in America and blown up even a peach tree, we would consider it an act of war, and we would be demanding entire cities be made into parking lots. What are we doing over here? What do we do? We're risking nuclear war. We're risking World War III. So what? So the Donbas can stay under the control of the Ukraine instead of Russia? I don't think that's a big enough predicate to start World War III. Excuse me. And so the escalation, in rhetoric almost immediately turned into action, because once we said it, the worry is, well, are they bluffing? Are they just saying that? Or are they going to actually use? Oh, no, they're already using the missiles. Oh, they're already hitting targets in Russia. So that happened. And so the Russians responded at the beginning of this week saying, look, if the wrong missile falls on the wrong target and y'all hit something that's actually valuable that ticks us off, oh, yeah, you're risking escalating this to a nuclear war. Uh-oh. So I guess the U.S. will back off. Oh, no, we fired more missiles. Great. So then they say, well, Russia, but that's not nuke level irritation, is it? And they said, listen, we don't have any plans to nuke anybody, but if we did, we'd start with the UK. And so here we are going in this back and forth, tit for tat, escalation. And then today, the new news to add on top of this ongoing terrible narrative of horrible diplomacy, the absence of foreign policy, is Germany says, if y'all need a place to like stage 800,000 NATO troops, just spitballing a number out there. It's not like we actually have any active plans, but, let's just say 800,000 just to have a nice round number there. We still have the facilities. We'd be happy to rent some space to you guys, to our allies. Anything to stop old Putin. So great. Russia says we don't have any plans to nuke anybody, but if we did, it would be A, B, C, D, D, E, F. And we're saying, okay, we don't have any plans to invade Russia, but if we did, here's where we would stage all of our military assets. We're just walking into World War III. I think derelict on my TVs here, both Fox News and MSNBC. Fox News is talking about, Matt Gaetz, the new attorney general pick for Trump, is meeting with some senators from the GOP side of the aisle. On MSNBC, they're talking about the House Ethics Committee maybe releasing the report on Matt Gaetz and the accusations against him. So good. We're all just digging in our belly buttons here, proverbially speaking, or metaphorically speaking, because we're too worried about who the attorney general is or isn't going to be while we're walking into World War III. We laugh about this. I know you read books. You may not be reading one currently, but you've read through stories in history, or at least maybe seen movies where there's like a foreign invasion coming and the armies are marching across the countryside headed toward the capital, just pillaging the poor peasants as they go along. And then when you get into, the walled capital, when you get into the city center and the royal court, they're all around some big table and they're arguing over whether the new color this fall is going to be yellow or purple or something just goobery like that. Arguing about the, who's going to sit to the right hand of the king and who's going to sit to the left hand of the king. Heck, you kind of heard that in the New Testament with the disciples bickering about who's going to be the greatest disciple. I'll be at the right hand of Jesus. I'll be at the left hand of Jesus. Well, you're not even one of the big ones. You're not. And they're arguing about status while there's some real serious stuff going on here. It's funny how we do that. It's funny how there could just be an entire storm going on outside. And here we are just picking lint out of our belly button. Oh, no, this attorney general is the worst guy ever. He's literally Hitler. I pulled some audio on this yesterday where they were saying this is the worst pick possible for attorney general. No, I think I would be a worse person to be attorney general. I'm not even an attorney. Wouldn't that just necessarily be a worse pick? Do y'all have to be so sensational and hyperbolic about everything? It's not believable anymore. No, you know who would be a worse pick? The homeless guy that was yelling obscenities at me when I walked to 7-Eleven on my lunch break. He would be a worse attorney. Y'all need to calm down and stop playing this team blue, team red game. And look, we're walking into World War III. The question is, how many missiles is Russia going to take? American missiles with American flags on them, written with the instructions written in English. How many missiles are going to land in Russia blowing stuff up before we actually start a for real war? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. The other question is Biden trying to start World War III or just leave a big mess on his way out? Because that would help Team Blue if Trump inherits chaos and it all falls apart on his watch. Yeah, because you could start World War III now. It's all going to happen under Trump's first term. That'll hurt him. Are they doing it on purpose? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. If you got any comments, 800-288-9227. And just remember, The James Show is your home for Project 2025 implementation and traffic on the ones. I'm working on blessedbethefruit.org. I'm going to roll it out Friday at the latest. I got enough to put out there, but I want to add some more bells and whistles before I make it public. If you have any recommendations for what needs to be on the page at blessedbethefruit.org, send me an email, james@wbap.com, or you can let me know via a Facebook message or whatever it is. All right, so one of the big stories that we've been following for the last week or so is the escalation that's happening in Ukraine and Russia. You know, we have authorized the use of long-range missiles, and then they actually fired some, and then the Russians said, well, nuke's on the table, and then Putin said, if we do nuke, it'll start with the UK, and then we come back, and I was feeling, a little bit better, remembering that world wars always start with Germany. And then the story today is Germany's like, oh, well, if y'all want to start a world war, we got a good spot right for you right here. We've already got it picked out and everything. We've already got it decorated. We got the cable hooked up. It's ready to go. Great. David Hamilton's back on from America's Future series. Did we just get a step closer to World War III? David, are we just now like half a step away from World War III?
Every day we get closer and closer, and every day we do something that makes you question our nation's wisdom or sanity. We also authorize the use of anti-personnel mines. These are all the sorts of things that a country does when it's at war with another country. And yet here in America, we don't seem to believe or want to believe that we're at war with Russia. By proxy, we've been at war with them for some time. We've been arming their enemy, and we helped provoke this war. People don't want to acknowledge that. We invited NATO. We kept jawboning that we invited Ukraine to join NATO, which is a direct threat to Russia. Many people say that the invasion of Ukraine was unprovoked. Well, maybe by the Ukrainians, but we provoked it because we were trying to add another country to their border with our missiles, our personnel, our armies to it. And somehow the press ignored that and acted like this was just some crazy thing. Now, he's an evil guy, and he wants to make Russia great again, but he's not stupid and he's not crazy. And we have to get over that. He's a bad guy, and we need to be full-throated in our support of Ukraine, which I absolutely am. But if we can't figure out a way to negotiate a peace and stop ratcheting it up, we are actually going to have World War III, and none of the other stories you're covering are going to matter.
Well, I'm surprised it's not getting talked up on MSNBC or Fox News or any of these other channels because, we have NATO, which was found as a specifically anti-Russian organization, if my history serves me correct.
Well said, that's correct.
Okay. And so we've expanded it all the way to now where we have countries that are bordering, not just Ukraine, but Finland is in the conversation. Mm-hmm. They're not officially in yet, are they?
I think they are. They actually are. So there's 38 countries that we've added, and I would argue that looks like winning. We've been winning. We've been adding to NATO against Russia, but at some point, as I've said on your show and other shows, if you shove a bear far enough into a cave, it is going to use its claws. And these claws are nuclear claws. Putin is not going to want to give up power. We have emboldened him, and now we're pressuring him into this. We've sort of trapped him into this. If we don't come up with an approach, and the fact that we're not talking and we never hear about what would it take to have a negotiated withdrawal is the most disturbing thing. We keep ratcheting up the rhetoric, the jingoistic talk, support Ukraine, Slava Ukraine. I support Ukraine. All my friends do. We work with them every day. But we have to come up with a way to end this war. And that means no Ukraine in NATO, no Russia in Ukraine, and we have to come to some negotiated settlement on Crimea and the southeastern corner of Ukraine.
All right, a couple more questions before we get out of here. How concerned are you about these mines? I was looking it up earlier in the show. There's an international treaty. 160 countries have signed. We're not going to use mines like this. Russia and U.S. haven't signed that treaty before, so this is a pretty despised tool in the international community.
Yeah, many countries believe that this is, a war crime to use these. We saw what happened in Southeast Asia and other countries, and Afghanistan and others. And you see children decades later stepping on these, getting their limbs blown off. Is it highly effective? Absolutely. Is it the right thing to do? No, I would say it's not a moral thing to do. But more importantly, it's just one more poke at the bear. We're going to allow our ally and encourage our ally to shoot you as far as Moscow, and then act like we're not at war. We're going to encourage the use of landmines, anti-personnel mines, and then act like we're not at war. These are all the acts that countries do when they're at war with another. We have to there should be a news room, some sort of news watch, some sort of war room going on right now. All of the stations you're talking about, all these other outlets, why aren't we having, crisis in Ukraine and worrying about DEFCON, It's stunning to me that we're so nonchalant.
I totally agree. We have American missiles that are just 300 miles from Moscow in Ukraine. They're just 100 miles from St. Petersburg in Finland, and we're firing them off. I mean, how many American missiles have to land in Russia before it's technically a war, David?
If we're doing this to provide pressure in order to get a negotiated withdrawal, fine. But we never hear anything. I'm for the biggest stick you can bring, but there has to be a carrot. What is the outcome? Are we going to actually try to defeat Russia in a kinetic war? We can't do that, and they can't do that to us without causing World War III. What we have to do is apply much pressure, and that's mostly economic. We have to drill, baby, drill, as we've said on your show. If we can increase our energy production over the next few years, that's going to weaken them. Fine, do all of those things. But then be at the negotiation table and make it possible for Putin to withdraw and to save a little face.
All right, thank you very much. David Hamilton, America's Future Series. Go check them out online. We'll let you know about when they have some events coming to town. David, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
There's an event that's happening tonight, though. It's an exhibition happening in Dallas that's sort of like a local version of Shark Tank. It's going to be a big production with a crowd, and there's going to be some people pitching to investors. And I'll introduce you to the guy behind the event that's happening tonight next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. My next guest is among my favorites because she never pulls any punches. It's the great Debbie Schlussel. Debbie, welcome back to The James Show. I don't know what the bigger story is. I think the biggest story today is Russia, but since I've been sitting here talking about it, Fox News has barely mentioned the back and forth. Germany saying, hey, we'll be the staging ground for World War III. MSNBC hasn't even mentioned it once. Am I wrong? This isn't a big story?
I think it's a huge story. Well, MSNBC, look, even Comcast is trying to get rid of MSNBC because, and look at how their ratings, by the way, have fallen since Trump got reelected. I think it's a huge story, and I think that you often point out stories that should be huge stories and that the media, mainstream media, and even the not-so-mainstream media ignore because they're focused on things that really forward their agenda and their narrative. And anything that gets in the way, well, we can't tell the public about that because they might get the wrong idea. They might actually stumble onto the truth.
Well, see, this is where Fox News gets a demerit too, because they are really wrapped up in these appointments, and they're really wrapped up in these new policies, and the transgender bathroom rule in Congress that's being debated now. Because it feels like we're far separated from DC, but these guys, they know all these guys. The people that do the interviewing on Fox News. They've met Matt Gaetz before, probably several times. They might even have him in a cell phone. They're kind of wrapped into this because there's a bit of self-interest for them, too. They're in the cool kids crowd.
I agree with you 100%. And listen, I consider Fox News the mainstream media. I think you could argue that they're even more the mainstream media now than some of the legacy mainstream media like NBC and CNN. I mean, CNN doesn't really get any ratings at all to speak of anymore, even less than MSNBC.
I caution against being too dismissive of the network shows, because like the network evening news for ABC gets like 4 million. CBS gets almost that. NBC does pretty good too. So they actually, just the network news, the ones that come on at like 6:30, they crush Fox News, and the millions of people that watch them don't watch Fox News. So the mainstream media still has a great influence on a bunch of people that Fox News doesn't reach. So they're getting close to the mainstream media, but they're only dominant when compared to the other cable news channels, CNN and MSNBC. So,
it depends, though. It depends which show. Listen, I'm one of the people. I don't have cable, so I don't watch Fox News. I do have a Roku TV, and occasionally I'll watch various different cable network clips that they have on Roku TV, but I watch NBC and ABC Nightly News. I think I watch it with a very jaundiced eye. But I think that, some of the Fox News programs reach a lot more people. Late night. Listen, younger people don't get their news from news shows. They get it from comedy shows. They get it from social media and online and streaming and all of that. And younger people watch late night shows. They don't watch Jimmy Kimmel or any of the network late night shows, but more of them watch the late night show on Fox News, and they watch Gutfeld's show.
Yep.
The Fox News morning show, they beat CBS News' morning show on many occasions. So I do consider them the mainstream media. They're a different form of mainstream media, but I consider them just as much mainstream media as the liberal establishment legacy mainstream media.
Well, what do you think of these new fledgling sort of second and third tier networks that are starting to pop up? Like Newsmax and OAN, One American News Network. There's Real America. There's America First. Oh, Real America's Voice is what I was trying to say. And then there's the America First channel. There's a lot of competition that's starting to bubble up, and some of them are getting better.
Some of them are getting better, but Newsmax never really gets much past 1 million viewers, and while some people would covet that, maybe a local TV station would really be doing well if they got that local TV news. Newsmax and One America News really got a lot of attention when a lot of Trump people, a lot of conservatives were mad at Fox News for calling Arizona and so on. And also because it appeared that Fox News was turning against Trump and was promoting others like Ron DeSantis and trying to turn the page from Trump. So a lot of people got mad and they watched those others. But now that Fox News is back on the Trump train, I don't think these other smaller ones really are getting the eyeballs they used to get. They're getting more than they did at the very beginning of when they started out, for sure. And I wouldn't count them out completely. And sometimes their clips, make national news and headlines, but it's rare, and I just don't consider them that much of a factor. The same thing, though, goes with this News Nation. I don't think anyone watches it, but you always see the clips from there online. People are always forwarding them. But
good social media game. Now that you mention it, I've had the same experience. I'm not sure if I've ever sat down and watched News Nation more than just one or two times, but I certainly see their clips circulating around. I know you would appreciate the part of the conversation post-election that's being had about the media. I died laughing and actually thought of you. They were who was saying that? What was it, like Van Jones or someone from CNN saying, well, the left needs a Joe Rogan. The problem is now that people are watching, more people are listening to an episode of Joe Rogan than any show on MSNBC. The left has sort of lost that avenue to people. And really, you don't need a Joe Rogan. You already have one. He's called Joe Rogan. It's like if y'all wouldn't have crapped on him and told everyone he took horse paste and treated him like a madman for humanizing Trump, he still claims to be a liberal. He still claims to be a progressive. They just crapped on him so much.
I never thought Joe Rogan was a conservative. I think he really doesn't believe in anything. He's all over the map, but I think at heart he is a leftist, like you said. And the first time when Trump ran in 2016, he was totally anti-Trump.
Totally.
He wasn't even pro-Trump in 2020 all that much. And he took a lot of left-wing points of view. I just don't think he's much of an ideologue. I think he's more of an opportunist. And he sees where things are going, and he sees that most of his listeners or his, viewers, I don't know what you would call them, but people who follow him, many of them are in the bro culture, and the bro culture is more conservative than anything. They don't want somebody like Kamala Harris telling them what to do and getting involved in their lives and, making the economy bad. They want jobs. They don't want DEI passing them over because they're white males or what have you. So I think he saw that, and, you could be the number one podcast at one time, and then you could lose your followers. Things change. I mean, look at MySpace. So I think he knows that, and I think he's very good at being a chameleon. I don't think he really stands for anything, to be honest with you. One thing I didn't like is he said a lot of really anti-Israel and anti-Semitic stuff many times over the years, including recently when Theo Von was on. Theo Von, a guy who's also very popular, Bro Culture podcast, one of the top podcasts, Bro Culture or not, and he brags about how he's friends with David Duke and goes working out with him at the gym, which David Duke doesn't look like he works out to me. He looks like he's had a lot of plastic surgery, but he was bragging about that to Tucker Carlson. He was bragging to Joe Rogan about something against the Jews, and the Jews control the media, and saying anti-Israel stuff. And Rogan was going along with it. Rogan is, to me, more of like a far-left populist who shares a lot of the far-left values, the Jew hatred, and a lot of that stuff.
What are you up to these days, Debbie? Where can they find your work outside of the James Show?
So they can catch me on Instagram at Real Debbie Schlussel, on Twitter at Debbie Schlussel, on Facebook, Debbie S. as in Schlussel, at Debbie S. fan page. DebbieDoesPolitics.com, DebbieDoesMovies.com.
Debbie Schlussel, thanks for being on the James Show.
Thank you. Anytime.
All right, your thoughts, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, the first trans woman has been elected to Congress, and a real woman in Congress wants to pass a rule to keep the fake woman out of the women's bathroom. Details next on the James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.